The year is 1987. We're studio executives who have just seen a rough cut of the film The Princess Bride, very similar to what you see when you watch it. But we, in this mirror universe, are going to fix it. Cue the intro.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mirror Movie Universe podcast. My name is Nate. I'm one half of the hosts of this shindig of a show. And across the aisle and across the country from me is Dan, who you heard in the intro. Say hi, Dan.
Hey, everybody. Nate and I are brothers who like to talk about movies. That's it.
Have for our whole lives. And we thought that we'd take a stab at doing that same thing that we would be doing anyway on the internet. So here we are. Today, like you heard Dan say in the intro, we're going to talk about The Princess Bride. What a film.
Yeah.
What a lovely movie. We're going to talk about what we like and what we would fix if we had the chance, if we were movie executives in 1987. No big fixes by the rules of this show. It's, the movie's already made. You can tweak a thing, you can change a thing around, you can shoot an extra scene, you can cut something out, but no overarching sweeps of like, that entire second half of the movie would be different. That's not the kind of stuff we do. So in order to talk about all of this, we're going to have to talk about what happens in The Princess Bride.
So Nate, what does happen in The Princess Bride?
Well, you're going to have to look at this through kind of a couple of lenses, because The Princess Bride is all told as a story from a grandfather to his sick grandson. He has this book that he brings, that he's reading his grandson for the first time, and he says, "I used to read it to your father, and I'm going to read it to you." And
what a great impression!
Oh, thanks. I've been working on my Peter Falk impression since I saw Murder by Death when I was a kid. But in The Princess Bride, there's this storybook that's being narrated. And in that story, there's a gal named Buttercup who is on a farm, and she's, doing farmly things. There's not much detail there. And there's a farm boy, like a farmhand named Wesley, who falls in love with her. And there's this opening bit of narration that explains it. And their sort of love language is that he says, "as you wish," to her requests. And eventually she learns that when he said, "as you wish," he meant, "I love you."
Yeah, technically, I think the love language would be acts of service.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, anyway, go ahead.
So it's explained in voiceover that Wesley goes off to seek his fortune on the high seas, and his ship is beset by the dread pirate Roberts, and he is summarily killed. So say goodbye to that character. Buttercup is then betrothed to the prince of the land, Prince Humperdinck. This is in a fictional European country called Gilder or Florin or something like that. And Prince Humperdinck is going to marry her. She's not too happy about this because her true love, Wesley, died, a few years ago. I think it's like 2 or 5 years, something like that. And she just kind of like depressingly goes out on a ride every day. She is kidnapped on one of these rides by 3 men. There is Inigo Montoya, who is a Spaniard swordsman who is seeking revenge for his father, who was killed.
By a six-fingered man. Very important.
Six-fingered man. And you've got Fezzik, who's a big, dumb giant who's not actually so dumb, but he's put down by the leader of the group, Vicini, who is a self-proclaimed genius and the mastermind behind this plan. They put Buttercup on a boat. Inconceivable, played by Wallace Shawn, who's just great. This isn't even my favorite thing that I've seen him in, but he's just awesome. They put her on a boat. They sail across the seas to another country. Their plan is to murder her on that country's soil. So it'll start a war, and they'll get paid handsomely for it. Who's behind this? We don't know. But they're being followed on the sea by this mysterious boat that only has one person on it. They're attacked by some eels. It doesn't matter. And then the boat catches up with them at the base of the Cliffs of Insanity, which rise up into Gilder. It's Gilder is the name of the other country. So they're climbing up this rope onto the cliffs, and this man in a black costume is following them. Is he the dread pirate Roberts that killed Wesley? We don't know, but he's following them up this rope. And they leave Inigo Montoya, who's the swordsman, there to confront him when he gets to the top. Inigo is very honorable. He helps him to the top, and then they have a sword fight where you learn that this man in black is very skilled with the sword. Inigo studied for 20 years, and he's being beaten by this guy. The man in black knocks him out. So he says, I'd sooner destroy a stained glass window than an artist such as yourself. So he just knocks him out. He doesn't kill him. And he runs across the countryside where he is awaited by the giant Fezzik. And he takes him out in kind of like a chokehold and everything, because Fezzik, they're just like talking about how to be sportsmanlike in combat while they're fighting. Fezzik, who's played by Andre the Giant, is doing a wonderful job. Knocks out Fezzik. And then he moves on to the final test, which is with Vicini, the mastermind. And he goads Vicini into a battle of wits where he puts poison in one of two wine goblets on a table. And he says, where's the poison? The battle of wits has begun. And Vicini, tries to outwit him and says, oh, look over there. And he switches the glasses. And he's so confident that he has figured out where the poison is. He takes a drink and then falls over dead. Yeah. And we find out that this man in black guy has an immunity to the poison, and that he poisoned both glasses. Our father has a different theory about that, and I'll talk about that later. But so he's now rescued Buttercup, and they're running across the countryside. She kicks him down a hill when the prince comes running, and he yells, as you wish. And oh my God, it's Wesley. And his black mask comes off, and it's actually been Wesley this whole time. They have some nice romance scenes in this ravine path, and then they go into a swamp where rodents of unusual size, big rats, attack them, and they're sucked into some quicksand and all of this kind of stuff. And it really serves to show you the bond that they have together. It's not just like, surprise, I'm your long lost lover, and then other stuff happens. They give it some room to breathe. When they come out of the fire swamp, they are met by Prince Humperdinck and Count Rugen, who's been Prince Humperdinck's right-hand man this entire time. And he's got, speaking of right hands, 6 fingers on his. Mm-hmm. And Wesley notices this, and he's knocked out and taken to the pit of despair. Buttercup is set to marry the prince. The prince is like, oh, Wesley ran away. He doesn't actually want to be with you. But he's actually got him torturing in the pit of despair. Buttercup refuses to marry the prince. The prince gets all in a tizzy about it, runs down to the pit of despair and turns a machine all the way up and kills Wesley. Inigo and Fezzik have both woken up, found each other, and in the days leading up to the wedding, find Wesley, who they know can beat Prince Humperdinck and kind of give them all redemption. They find Wesley's corpse in the pit of despair and bring it to a sorcerer chemist guy named Miracle Max, played by Billy Crystal. It was just a wonderful scene. Yeah. And he and his wife make a pill that brings Wesley back to life, a chocolate covered pill that brings Wesley back to life. I'd like to remind those of you in the audience who haven't seen that this is a story that a grandfather is telling his grandchild. It's kind of hokey. That's fine. Yeah. So they bring Wesley back to life. He's not up to quite full strength, and they kind of sneak into the castle by tricking some guards into thinking one of them is a flaming ghost. It's a whole thing. They get into the castle, and Inigo recognizes Count Rugen as the 6-fingered man and runs off after him. They have a sword fight. Fezzik fights some guards, and Wesley ends up in the bedroom of Buttercup and Prince Humperdinck. Inigo has a great moment where he says, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Over and over again as he fights Count Rugen. And he gets stabbed, and you're like, oh my God, is he going to die? And eventually he overcomes him. Wesley, without his strength, bluffs the prince into basically tying himself into a chair because he can't fight him, but he scares him so much that he just gives up. And then Fezzik finds some white horses, and they all ride off into the sunset. It's quite lovely. All throughout, the kid is also learning something about maturity as well, because he's like, Grandpa, you're not telling it right. And he's a little kid, but by the end he's like, oh, maybe we can read it again tomorrow, and it's really sweet. So that's Princess Bride. Dan, what do you like about Princess Bride?
So much. I mean, what's not to like about it? It's a beautiful film. I love the framing device where the grandfather's talking to the grandson. I think I'm really happy that a lot of other movies don't do this. I think that it would be easy to try to replicate. I think it works really well here. I love the casting of it. It's phenomenally cast. Everybody in it is fantastic. I love you mentioned the bluff scene.
Mm.
It's so good. That whole speech is to the
Mhm.
pain, to the
Yeah.
pain. I'm not familiar with that phrase. And he says, so that every creature, every child who cries out, my God, what is that hideous thing, will fall on your perfect ears.
Mm. That's
Phenomenal
great.
speech. An incredibly beautiful love story.
Mhm.
Incredibly beautiful love story. This guy is trying desperately to get back to the woman he loves. She's lost the love of her life and doesn't know how to go on without him.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's just
She
beautiful. And then they ride
she's
off to
kind
the
of
sunset.
she's kind of useless though. Let's just a little bit. I'll talk about it later when I talk about my fix. But like, she's kind of useless a little bit. And
I mean,
the
it is
she,
kind of a in its defense. It is a fairy tale, and she's
it's
the
a fairy
princess
tale.
bride. So, all right,
Yeah, no, that's fair though. Like
all right,
it is a beautiful love story regardless. But yeah,
all right. Well,
yeah.
what do you love about it?
Um,
Oh, I
I
forgot. I got one more thing. One more thing.
yeah.
The
Mm.
sword fight is so good. It is
Hmm.
so good. When they went to shoot that scene, they had a day scheduled to shoot it, and they took weeks to do it
Hmm.
because it is so good. The script just said the best sword fight in history. And so they took weeks to do it. The sword fight between the Man in Black and Inigo Montoya at the beginning. When I was in college, was in a theater class, and we had a guy come in who was all a swordsman guy. I don't know what his title was, and he's showing off these swords, and he's like, "Name any movie, and I'll tell you what's wrong with a sword fight." And people are saying stuff, Braveheart, and he's like, "Ah, they would never hold it this way," and blah blah
Mm.
blah. And what about I don't know what it was, the Three Musketeers? Ah, they would never do blah blah blah. And I was like, The Princess Bride. And he
Mm.
goes, yeah, that's really good. Like it's
It's
just
great.
such a good sword fight, and it's
Mhm.
done beautifully. And the way they're doing it, it's like fencing back and forth and back and forth, and you don't know who's going to come out on top.
Mhm.
So great. Um, all right, what's your loves? What do you love about this?
I'll riff off of that first. So the action scenes, of which there are not that many. It's sword fights and some like slow wrestling. They're not like they lean on character stuff very well. So all of the fighting and stuff between Inigo Montoya and the Dread Pirate Roberts guy, who we later discover is Wesley, um is um it's kind of cartoony. Like it's fun, and they're going up and down and they switch hands and stuff. But there's a bit where he does like a somersault off of like a
Yeah,
gymnastic thing. It's very cartoony, but it's very tongue in cheek, like fun between the characters. And it's not, if you turn off sound and just watch that, it's kind of boring looking. But they're not just sparring with the swords, they're also fighting with words. Like they're almost showing off, like, oh, I've studied this guy, oh yeah, I've studied this guy, I'm not left-handed. And so they like, the movie knows where it's weak, because it's not like the best, most impressive choreography ever. It's by the book in some case, which is probably why the sword guy liked it. But I
yes,
love that they lean on the dialogue, because the dialogue in the sword fight is almost as good as the dialogue in where they're just sitting at the table and drinking wine.
yeah,
They take care to do that, which is just fantastic. I uh I love the iocane powder scene, and how quotable it is, and how quotable the rest of this movie is. If you ask someone to quote this movie, if they are a big fan of it, they'll just do the basically all the lines beginning to end, because they roll off the tongue, and they are things that stick in your brain. They're great. Like there's a through line where the giant keeps rhyming, and it
yeah.
pisses the main guy off. And he's like, "No more rhymes now. I mean it." And the giant goes, Anybody want a peanut?" He's like, "Ah!" It's just all the little stuff is really funny. You can read into it as much as you want or not. There's a so our dad loves this movie. It's his favorite movie, and he went on a rant to me like 2 or 3 years ago about how the iocane scene, he didn't actually poison both glasses or whatever, but at the beginning of it he says, "Inhale this but do not touch," and Vicini goes, And he puts it back in his thing, and he's like, oh, I smell nothing. And he's like, what you do not smell is iocane powder. And Dad's like, oh, he poisoned him right there. He didn't actually poison the glasses. Like, he was safe or whatever. He just poisoned Vicini when he smelled the poison, because it gets in your nose and he dies right there. And he's just stalling him until he keels over for the rest of the scene. And I'm like, you can watch the movie that way, and it's still very clever and very funny, because he's bluffing this guy under the table who's already dead and doesn't know it. And it's great. It's fun. It's also just a lovely story. Like the love story is great. The adventure is great. I remember I was watching this with our cousin, who's very much like a little brother to us. Mm-hmm. And he was like 9 or 10, which would have made me a teenager at the time. And I was like, Graham, you've never seen The Princess Bride. I want to watch it with you. And he's like, oh, I'm not going to watch a movie called The Princess Bride, because he's a 9-year-old boy. He doesn't want to watch that. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Instead, do you want to watch The Adventures of the Dread Pirate Roberts? And he's like, that sounds awesome. Let's watch it. And we put it in, and I skipped the title coming on screen, and that was it. And he loved it. And for months after, he's like, oh, I want to watch Dread Pirate Roberts. And I was like, that movie's just The Princess Bride. And it crashed his whole reality. But it's just such a perfect story. It's enjoyable by anyone, anywhere. And I think it's great. I think it's wonderful.
There are things that we need to fix, though.
Yeah. So what's on your list? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do to hack it up?
My biggest problem with this movie is right at the beginning. Actually, it takes a little bit to get into what's happening, and you kind of alluded to this in your recap. You're like, it's like 2 years, or is it 5 years, or is it this? Yes, he's like,
it's a lot of it's done with voiceover.
It's a lot of voiceover, and there's nothing visually to help piece that together. There's nothing visually to show the passage of time, which you can do very easily with having like leaves fall and then crops grow and then things like that. Also, Buttercup looks the exact same, like the same hair length, the very similar outfit. Like, there's nothing to show growth and change over that amount of time. So if you wanted to add in something there, I think that you should add in visually when that narration is happening, passage of time. Go back and reshoot some scenes, show a little bit more of the farmhand actually doing some farmhand work. He goes off, you've got Buttercup there, she's doing stuff at the farm by herself, she's growing older, her hair is growing out, whatever. Show a little bit more there, because it seems very rushed, and it's actually kind of integral to what is about to happen.
It's just a bunch of hard cuts.
Like
really, through his narration, it's like 5 years later, and it snaps to the castle. I keep bumping the rocket in my frame. Ow. Okay. It snaps to the castle, and you're like, she's marrying this guy, and it gives you whiplash a little bit as the beginning. You don't want to draw it out and make the exposition too explainy, but like, it gives you whiplash. It really does.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not talking about a lot here. I think you can get away 60 more seconds, 90 more seconds, and you get what you need in that moment. Even more, just maybe even not add time to this, but put in better visuals to show the passage of time, to show what's happening with these characters, with her, especially at the beginning of this film.
Yeah. And you can do the same thing for, there's this little bit at the beginning in the same part where he's like, Wesley's ship was attacked by pirates, and the kid just says murdered by pirates is good in voiceover, but it's not, it's still over a shot of him like walking away or something like that. It's not,
there's nothing, no visual there. And I think that it might have been an intentional choice, because they're reading the book and the kid is kind of getting into it, and everything that you see he's imagining, right? So I get the intentional choice there, but at the same time, like you're saying, like, oh, he's killed by pirates, and then they don't show anything. And when they don't show it, film has its own language. Like, if you don't see it, it doesn't happen. So by not showing it, you're missing out on that.
That's useful later for when he's still alive and he's explaining what happened to him. But it would be just a little bit more of an emotional hook for the audience if you see, like, all you need is a shot of like a ship. You could probably do this in model miniature anyway. shot of a ship that's, white sails, very proper prim looking, and then like, past the shot comes like the evil ship,
Mm-hmm.
that's, all black sails and all this kind of stuff. That's all you need. Just something visually interesting right there. Yeah, I know, I'm with you. Yeah, you could make the movie better that way. That's one
Okay.
way you can make the movie better.
What is another way? What's your fix here?
I mentioned this earlier. Oh, God, I cannot find a way to pull this off, but I don't like that Buttercup is kind of like, um like she can't really okay, so I have some friends who have told me about this thing, on the internet, that codifies like a woman's agency in a movie with, can you replace her with a sexy lamp? And she's just kind of an object throughout the rest of the movie. And in many places, for a good chunk, especially while she's kidnapped and she's just kind of tied up in there, and Wesley, Dread Pirate Roberts Wesley's trying to rescue her. She's not really doing much. She's not trying to escape. She tries once with the eels and immediately almost gets eaten by eels and comes back into the boat and gives up. There's not much that you can do to fix that, though. She's kind of like dependent on other people throughout the entire movie. And so if you're going to fix that, I don't know what you do. You can't like put in one scene. So I don't know if I'd fix that. So my second thing of like okay, yeah, I could fix this instead, is the one thing that I truly dislike about Princess Bride.
Okay.
I hate the music.
Oh.
I don't like it. I don't like it. It's really synthy. It places it in the mid 80s, and it probably gives a lot of people nostalgia. In the same way that like the kid playing like an 80s Atari video game at the beginning gives you nostalgia, but it's not it's not that good. Nothing, there's no musical hook that sticks in your head. It's really synthy. It's not very original. And if you've got money in the budget, surplus from whatever, laid over at the end, I'd say kill that score and have Ennio Morricone do the score. He did. I wouldn't like have John Williams do it, because it would be way too over bombastic, and it's this nice like self-contained story that a grandfather is reading his grandchild. And Hans Zimmer and Howard Shore and everybody like don't really have careers yet. So I would have Ennio Morricone do the score. He did the music for the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and all of that kind of stuff. But mostly he did the soundtrack for a movie called The Untouchables, which came out like plus or minus 2 years around this, and also was a little synthy, but is like poppy, and it's up there, and I think could lend a lot of oomph to some of the flatter action scenes, which are already aided by the dialogue. Yeah, I don't like the synthy score, and that's, if I can't change a big thing like Buttercup being useless, I'll change something that would be easy to swap out. By the rules of this show, I would change the score. I'd have somebody else do it, but that's what I would fix about it. I mean, has the music in this movie ever bothered you? Because it's bothered me.
Honestly, as soon as you said it, I was like, I can't tell you what the music sounds like.
Yeah,
Like
that's what bothers me about it.
Nothing sticks in my head at all.
Yep. I can recall music from a lot of movies that I've seen, not big ones, not the John Williams ones, but like what does the score to Witness sound like? It's this obscure movie from 1985. Oh, I know what that's.
Well, I know what it sounds like. It sounds like "Don't Know Much About History."
No, that's not.
They play that song, and he dances.
They play that. Okay, cool.
Well, anyway,
apparently I don't. But here, listen. Princess Bride. There's nothing that I remember. There's like some trumpets going like that's it. Yeah, it's not really oomphy.
And let me refute your first point here. Sure. How useless Buttercup is, because I was thinking about that too while you were talking.
Please do.
She does have that moment, the promise not to hurt him moment, when they're captured, and she sees the guys with crossbows that are going to shoot Wesley in the back.
Yeah.
And she says, "Promise not to hurt him." And they're
Yeah.
like, "What?" And she bargains for his life
Yeah.
with what little power she has. She bargains for his life. She
Yeah.
makes them not kill him in that moment.
Yep.
So yeah, I get what you're saying. A lot of this, she's a damsel in distress.
Yeah.
Like she's kidnapped by the pirates, and then she's kind of kidnapped by the prince. But she does have that moment where she gets to stand up for the
And
man that she loves.
yeah.
Which is
She's
really cool.
also being smart in that scene.
Yeah.
Where like the Prince Humperdinck is being very macho. He's like, "Yeah, I've got you," and then Wesley's like, "Yeah, I'll die right here," and he's kind of just doing it for the macho of it. He's not really like playing his cards, and so she's the one who makes that call. I'll concede on that, sure. So given that, I definitely would change the score.
All right.
I definitely change the score.
All right,
Yeah.
internet. This is what we do here. So you tell us, who do you think is right? Do you also hate the music for The Princess Bride? Can you even remember what the music sounds like? Do you think that the beginning of this is rushed? Would you like to see that fleshed out a little bit more with some added visuals? Please sound off in the comments. Or if you can think of other things that you would fix about it, put it there. Be nice, as always. And thank
It's
you
the
for
internet. They're
watching.
not going to be nice. All
Uh,
right.
yeah, please keep watching. The next episode that we're going to do is a pitch that no one asked for a sequel to this. So stay tuned.
Yeah.